Welcome to the Local Lens. I'm Jenny Pastisak. If you do business in Salisbury or Wycomico County, or you're a business owner, you will know our next guest. It is Bill Chambers, the CEO and president of the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce. Now notice I said area, because we all need to understand that this chamber reaches far beyond Salisbury and actually focuses a lot on regional work. Thanks for joining me, Bill.
Thanks for having me, Jenny.
So let's jump right in. The legislative session just ended. Dun, 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 dun. What does that mean? What are we waiting to hear?
Well, if you've paid any bit of attention, you've already heard that the General Assembly passed the largest tax increase in the history of Maryland. $1.6 billion of new taxes and fees. Among those is the very controversial tech tax at 3%, which, interestingly enough, literally up until the last day of the session, the sponsors of the tech tax weren't sure what it covered and what it didn't. And in questions from the other party, things like, well, this is going to tax my internet bill in my home. 1 hour into the session on that Monday, the answer was no, this does not tax your home internet services. By 9 o'clock that Monday night, the last night of session, it was revealed that, it probably is subject to the tax. So that tax alone is going to raise about $500 million. And this is all with the backdrop of this $3 billion plus deficit, structural budget deficit that the state of Maryland is facing, which is projected to be over $6 billion by 2028. So people ask us, how do we get in this position?
Yeah.
And everyone heard that the state was left with a budget surplus when Governor Hogan left office, which is true. But in the last 2 years, a lot of that money was COVID money and the ARPA money from the federal government, and we spent it. And in many cases, like some of us do in our own households or have done, we overspent.
Right.
And instead of reserving some of that money for the rainy day, which is now we're facing with these federal reductions in force and budget cuts, we're now subject to taxing our businesses, which, by the way, Delaware, Virginia, Pennsylvania, all of our neighbors are in pretty good fiscal health right now. And Maryland is in dreadful fiscal health. So it was a challenging session. I would call it historic. I've been involved in Annapolis since the late 80s in terms of being a part of that whole situation down there. And I've never seen a session like this before, ever.
So couldn't we take lessons from our other surrounding states, you think, that something's working and it's not for us? I mean, what could we can't do anything now.
So I'll give everybody a really concrete example, and you at home figure out if you can noodle this one through.
Okay.
Pennsylvania has double the population of Maryland.
All right.
Their annual budget for the state of Pennsylvania is $40 billion. Maryland's budget that was just passed, $67 billion, and we have half the population. Yet I don't see the roads and bridges crumbling in Pennsylvania. The economy there is growing. They've lowered their corporate income tax rate it will eventually be at 4.9%.
Wow.
Even with Governor Moore's reduction of the corporate income tax rate, we're still almost 8%. All of our neighboring states have lower corporate income tax rates. So if you're a business, and I'm going to now tax your tech, so you're paying 6% plus 3%, and I'm looking at my neighbors in Delaware, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia, why do I want to stay in Maryland? And that was the contention the business community brought with this tech tax, as well as the ill-fated business-to-business tax, which was defeated by the business community, and the chamber took strong positions on that. We were in Annapolis lobbying in that regard. But Maryland is not going to grow its economy organically if we continue to go to the well of the business community to pay our bills.
Sure.
When we look at our states around us, they're not doing the same thing. We've also been wholly dependent on the federal presence in Maryland for decades. And it looks like that gravy train is on the way out.
We need to stop doing that.
And Maryland, 11% of Maryland's payroll is tied directly to the federal government. And that is, as we've all heard and seen, that is beginning to decrease right now with the reductions of force. All federal agencies, especially, unfortunately, the ones that have Maryland residents working at those, we all have heard those jobs are being eliminated.
Yeah.
And that's a tough pill to swallow. And I think the General Assembly's not done with trying to figure out this revenue and budget problem. I expect a special session sometime late summer or early fall, once the fallout from these federal cuts is really realized.
And do you think the special session, I mean, that's where we could technically find a solution?
I think, here's what I think that could be on the table if the Maryland General Assembly pushes for a special session.
Okay.
I think they will find ways to reduce and slow down the timetable of Blueprint, which they didn't. Blueprint is fully funded. There were no cuts made in it, despite Governor Moore's desire to slow the roll on Blueprint. I think they'll have to do that. I think you'll see hiring freezes on state agencies. I think you could even see furloughs to try and save some state agencies money. It's not going to be a good situation.
No, because all of those things impact our people, our residents, our citizens.
And what the real impacts, the horrible impacts of this is, as far away as we are from Washington, D.C., what happens to the federal economy that impacts the state economy impacts the lower Eastern Shore.
It sure does.
So we're not immune to this.
No.
And when recessions occur, and some economists are saying now we're beginning with beginning stages of a recession, places like our community, the lower shore in Western Maryland, we're the first to see the effects and impacts of recession, and we're always, because we're rural, we're always the last to see improvements coming out of a recession.
Sure.
And the last thing Maryland needs is a Maryland recession, because this likely won't be impacted the same way in the neighboring states around us.
Correct. We feel it differently here.
Yes.
And I think that, this might lead us into the next conversation. Is there something to be said about, okay, this is going on the state level, what can we do locally to try and ease some of the pain? I mean, what can the chamber do? What can we do as a business community? I mean...
Well, look, we have that competition just to our south in Virginia and just to our north in Delaware. So the lower shore is actually one of the few regions of the state of Maryland in the last 10 years that's seen population growth. And I think a lot of that is cost of living, quality of life, access to big cities and infrastructure. So I think we've done a good job with local leadership the last decade generally in trying to isolate our area in a way that says we'll be partners with our neighbor to the north and south, Delaware and Virginia. So the chamber has always been a regional chamber, and we take a regional approach to the economy. What happens in Salisbury impacts Seaford, Delaware.
Yeah.
What happens in Wallops Island, Virginia with the NASA installation impacts Somerset, Worcester, and Wycomico County. So I think being regional and continuing that approach may help insulate our economy in a more favorable way than other parts of the state. But we have to be willing to take chances, and we have to be willing to be innovative and creative and collaborative to make that happen.
And share some of our ideas and yes, share with Virginia and Delaware.
It's worked the last 10 years because people realized for our economy to grow, the lower shore, we can't be in a silo.
No.
And we have to forget about the fact that in many cases, the lower shore is ignored by the other side of the bay. I mean, we have no committee leadership on any House or Senate committee. We have no vice chair positions on any Maryland House or Senate committee. So we're on our own, and I think we can do a pretty good job of building and growing our local economy based on the fact that the cost of living, the cost of goods, the cost to operate a business here, even though we're Maryland and it's an anti-business state, we're still able to do some things locally to attract and retain our business base.
But what can people watching this right now, the session's over, the legislators. What can people do, though? We can still talk to our delegates and express our concerns.
I mean, look, our delegation is majority Republican, with the delegate Hughes being the lone Democrat. So I think we all, the business community and our delegation all kind of sing off the same song sheet. Where people can make a difference with legislators and where legislators can make a difference in Annapolis is to not just stomp their feet and say, no, no, no. Keep the conversation going by saying things like, let's have a discussion about a piece of legislation.
Right.
Here's how it impacts my constituents. And it's really important for residents and business owners to get more engaged, and they have been. I've seen the engagement of the business community here with what happens in Annapolis grow exponentially the last 7 or 8 years.
That's great.
I'm able to get business people to come to Annapolis and testify before committees on legislation.
Let's take a road trip. I mean, it's not that hard.
It makes a difference when the Salisbury Chamber sends out an e-blast asking members to email committee leaders in Annapolis, email the Senate President, the House Speaker, the Governor's office. They're doing it.
Good.
So these voices are making a difference because it is mimicking the will of most Marylanders. Because what we're saying here on the shore is pretty much what most Marylanders are saying, with the exception of maybe Montgomery and Howard County.
No, and I think that's important. It's everyone is in this together, you know. So, like you said, can we insulate ourselves a little bit? That's what we have to do.
And again, we have been doing that, and I think a lot of that is a credit to local leadership. And Ocean City is a huge magnet, draws a lot of tax dollars into the state. The proximity of Nassau Wallops to our lower shore counties, I think, is going to continue to grow. Half the workforce at Nassau Wallops lives in Worcester, Wycomico, or Dorchester County, and Somerset County. Half the workforce. That's over 1,000 people, and these are all high-paying jobs.
Yeah.
So we need to, and I've talked to the governor about getting him down to Nassau Wallops for a tour and a briefing. And we're in this fiscal crisis right now. We need to be sure we're taking advantage of what's happening and growing
here
at Nassau Wallops.
Yeah.
Nassau Wallops is growing. It's one of only 4 installations across the world that's launching orbital and suborbital satellites and other resupply missions to the space station. So
important work for sure.
it is, and the Virginia governor wants to keep it all in Virginia, and that's fine. I respect that, but we're still here. We're close, and we can.
And our people are part of that.
That's correct. Yep.
Let's hop over to. I know that I wanted to talk to you about our school funding too here locally in Wycomico County, because I've been involved in the Wycomico Education Foundation and the Blue Ribbon Panel, just to kind of help with the support of, well, folks, we're investing as much into our schools as we did 15 years ago. Yeah, there's something a little wrong with that. So I know that, we kind of stated our piece at the local meeting. And what do we have? I guess we get to wait and hear what the school system will actually get.
Look. It is, I'm not sure I have the correct word. It's appalling the lack of investment that's been made in Wycomico County Public Schools the last 20 years. It's embarrassing. My dad used to tell me you can tell a person's priorities by looking at their checkbook. And the fact that we're investing a quarter of the county budget into our public schools, when I look at our neighbors to the east, and I look at our neighbors to the north, and even Somerset County, and they're investing far more than we are in our students.
Sure.
The simple solution is, instead of having this annual adventure where there's finger pointing and accusations about gift cards to teachers as thank yous, and we want more accountability of your money, Board of Education. The simple solution, which is done in many other counties across the state, including the one that I was the board president in Calvert years ago, you come up with a funding formula.
Right.
And every year, the county commissioners, in this case, our county council, know exactly what they're on the hook for. And the Board of Education knows exactly what money they have to work with every year based on a funding formula, whether that's a 2% increase a year plus inflation, whatever the formula is. The Board of Ed knows what their number is. long before they even start budget negotiations, and the county council knows what the number is.
And isn't that better for planning?
It's better for the planning. It's better for students. I mean, look, if the teachers union says I want a 20% raise, Board of Education says this is how much money we have.
Right.
So the cost of living is going to be this.
Right.
You can ask for anything you want, but this is the amount of money we have. But every year, at least the 8 years plus years that I've been here, it's an adventure. We have to fill council chambers with 200 angry parents and PTA members and business leaders. I think we have a county executive in Wycomico County now that understands we need to be investing properly in our public schools. Look, I don't care what some council members have said. When a business is looking to locate in a jurisdiction, they look at the quality of the public education because that tells them what kind of commitment that jurisdiction has in educating the workforce of the future. I had a county council member tell me once, Bill, the first thing they look at is taxes. And I said, sir, if the first thing people looked at was taxes before they moved the business to a jurisdiction, there'd be no businesses in Montgomery or Howard County. The reason why they have a thriving business environment in very high-taxed counties in Maryland is because they have exceptional public schools.
And people want to live there.
And people want to have their kids educated there.
Yeah.
So that needs to be the priority here. And I think we as a jurisdiction, as a community, need to demand that leadership understand that a successful, invested public school system is an economic development engine.
Sure.
It attracts businesses, it attracts growth, it attracts development, and that's produces tax dollars, and that
Workforce.
keeps your tax rates low. And that's what we should be pointing toward.
And the people who come here and can live here will spend their money here, as opposed to our neighboring county, Worcester County. And I would prefer my kids go to school there, and then I'll just drive a little extra further. We want them here.
Well, that's what happened right now. You have executives moving to some of our larger institutions and businesses in the county that are saying, no place to live, and schools to the east are faring better.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to move to Worcester County.
And then
Or up to Sussex and Delaware.
on top of that, the blueprint of there's going to be more mandates, and it's going to cost more money to implement everything in the blueprint. I don't know how we're possibly going to afford that, but it's just more on top of what we're already doing.
Well, there needs to be a serious discussion about revenue cap, because I've told folks in the last few weeks, if you think the revenue cap is here to stay, maybe you're smoking something funny, because
I've heard a lot of talk about it recently.
there will be no way the county can afford to absorb the blueprint mandates, the fact that the state just pushed more teacher pensions back on all the counties in Maryland. They're pushing back more transportation and road projects to the locals. There's no way a county with a revenue cap. Oh, and by the way, if revenue caps were great, why doesn't every county in Maryland have one? Or the Lone Ranger with a revenue cap?
Yeah.
So they're going to have to figure this one out sooner than later, whether it goes to a referendum in 26 or they have the courage as leaders to say we can't sustain the local government and what our commitments are based on the little bit of revenue. And the revenue, and here's the funny thing. Since the revenue cap was initiated, some estimates say we've left $70 million on the table. $70 million over the course of the last 20 years would have done a lot for education, for roads in the county, for quality of life, amenities, would have done a heck of a lot.
But I think too, there's an education piece there, because there's a lot of people out there, and some that are probably watching this, who don't maybe even understand what the revenue cap does. Like they just don't get it. Look, and if they were educated, they would say, oh, okay, I'm on board, or I'm not on board.
Look, if I'm a retired couple living out in Pittsville, and I'm totally against increased investment in the public school system, and I'm a big revenue cap fan. Let me tell you something. When the public school system grows in value and ranking, and businesses want to locate here because of the education system we have, the property value on your home is going to go up. You're going to be sitting on a piece of property that in your wildest dreams you never thought would be valued at what it is. Because when the value of a community goes up, everything around it, it's the old, a high tide lifts all vessels.
Yeah.
That's what happens. It's no different than the development in downtown Salisbury. When and if that development occurs, people that didn't have one penny of skin in the game are going to benefit financially as a result of that development.
Yeah, there's a lot of pushback and a lot of, you hear, it doesn't matter who you talk to. They're going to have an opinion about downtown. And someone's going to tell you parking. There's so many different reasons. But it's happening, right?
It's happening. How does Frederick figure it out? With their performing arts center and parking garages 2 and 3 blocks away. How do they figure it out? How does Hagerstown figure it out? Frederick's getting ready to build a brand new hotel and conference center downtown. They figure it out. And the reason they figure it out is when private investment says, I want to spend money in your town, you don't make it hard for them to spend the money, and you certainly don't throw them out the back door.
Right.
You find a way to take advantage of that investment. We have over $200 million of investment waiting on the sidelines in the city of Salisbury. And collectively, we all need to figure this out.
Well,
with a performing arts center set to go
we're
under
dragging our
construction.
feet, and then people are going to get fed up and be like, "I'm done. I don't." They'll go find somewhere else.
Once your jurisdiction, your city or your county gets a reputation as being either business selective or anti-growth or development, there won't be a developer or an investor for hundreds of miles around that are going to get anywhere near that jurisdiction.
I think that there are community members who are, I don't want it. I don't want the growth. I don't, I just want it to stay the way it's been for years. And you have some people that are, this is why I chose this place to live.
I don't think Salisbury will lose its small city character if 1,000 people decide to call the downtown home.
No, I don't think so.
In fact, I think
you're in Pittsville. You can hang out.
It will enrich the environment of the downtown if we have 1,000 new downtown residents.
And then I see what you're saying, because you can either choose to be a part of that and come visit, or you can go drive 5 miles away and just be happy in your neighborhood.
I live 20 minutes from Salisbury in a very rural area, and it wasn't by choice. It was just that was the first house available when we knew we were coming to the Eastern Shore. But both my wife and I would be just as happy if we were living downtown.
Yeah.
We'd save a lot of money on gas. So.
I do hear, and I'm happy to see, we have Bury Tavern, we have Brick Market, like there's some more businesses because, they're opening up, so there's more options for people. And, there's always the question about parking, and we don't have to get into that conversation. Right. And safety. I don't know. I mean, I have an office downtown. I've never felt unsafe. And I think that it's just that reputation or what people hear. They're like, oh, I don't want to drive down. You don't want to drive downtown. There's homeless people everywhere. Yeah. So, I think that I would say we have a safe downtown.
Look, if the Eastern Shore is a bit different in this regard. If I see somebody that doesn't look like me in a downtown location, that doesn't mean they're not like me.
No.
And I think we need to get away from these stereotypes and stigmas that people don't dress a certain way or look a certain way or wear their hair a certain way are in some way demeaning or endangering a local jurisdiction or a downtown area. I mean, I would want Salisbury to be the melting pot it already is, folks.
Yes,
we have a very vibrant Haitian community in our area. We have a growing Hispanic community. The school system has, I think, up to almost 20-some different nationalities represented in our school system.
Lots of different languages, too, yeah.
Hey, folks, that's what you should want in a community because that breeds new businesses.
It does.
It offers cultural opportunities, investment. So let's, we have to be careful we don't cut off our nose to spite our face.
I agree. And that saga continues. It'll
get solved.
Okay.
It will
Okay.
get solved. I am encouraged that, hopefully it will get solved before we need to solve it through the next election cycle, but I think
Sure.
it will get solved.
Yeah. Let's actually make some things happen.
Yeah,
That's what
agree.
that's what I hope for.
Me too.
Bill, let's talk about some of your events too. I know that, I just attended the Voodoo Brewing ribbon cutting, very well attended. Everyone was there. That's happening with your chamber events, and it's exciting.
Look, our ribbon cuttings for new businesses,
Yes.
years ago when I first started the chamber, we were happy if we had 25 or 30 people that came. Now it's 70, 80, 90, 100 people, and it's a cross-section of business owners, elected leaders, organizational leaders.
Nonprofits.
Yeah, it's and that's the regionalism that I think we've tried to bring as a chamber of commerce. And the same with our events. We're doing our post-legislative wrap-up event on April 17th at the Civic Center, and that garners a regional audience because the legislators that will be attending are the Lower Shore delegation. They're all representing, Talbot, Dorchester, Wycomico, Somerset, and Worcester.
And this is a place where people can come to hear them talk about what just happened.
Talk about
in
what
the
just
session.
happened in Annapolis and what they anticipate coming down the pike next year. And,
Okay.
and if there's a special session, what they think that'll look like.
Okay.
Another really important event is May 7th at the Civic Center, and that's the State of the Wycomico County Public Schools.
Okay.
And that is an annual event that is well attended. Parents, PTA members, organizational leaders, elected leaders, business owners, and they're going to get the lowdown from the superintendent of Wycomico County Public Schools on where the system is.
Okay.
And I'm sure the budget will be a part of that conversation on May 7th at the Civic Center. But those events, anyone's welcome to attend those events. It's not a member-only event.
Okay.
You just go to
That's
the
good.
website,
Yeah.
www.salisburyarea.com,
Okay.
and secure your ticket, includes your meal. The greatest thing about these events is you have a chance to get up close with legislators and with school administrators. So you'll have a chance to maybe start a relationship
Sure.
with one of your local elected leaders attending these events. They're very open folks and very honest, and they're always willing to come to these events that we do and not only support them, but share their ideas. But more importantly, they want to hear from you as a business owner or a community member about what's important to you, what your needs are, things that they don't see and hear.
Right.
They need to see and hear from you. So it's important we have these opportunities to present these events to the community and for the community to take advantage of them. And if you can't get to the event, I'm sure the media will cover these things.
Sure.
And, that's an opportunity to hear.
I
as
think
well.
part of what I'm hearing too throughout the conversations we've had is people can't be scared to have their voices heard. So Micah Stauffer, who's our superintendent, he's very accessible. Like you can have a conversation with him. He's not like from an arm's distance. It's engage with our delegates, engage with the superintendent, and I think that's where you can do something. You can talk to these people because they're accessible.
We're really fortunate to have Dr. Stauffer as our superintendent, not only because he's accessible, but he's also approachable. And if you have a question, a criticism, a comment, he is open to taking those. I can tell you other jurisdictions across the state, the superintendents are isolated like with Secret Service agents around
Like the
them.
president, yeah.
And they've got gatekeepers. Our superintendent, his desire is to make the school system the best it can be. His desire is student outcomes. His desire is having students perform at the highest level they can. His desire is making sure if you're not a college-bound senior in high school, you have other career opportunities in front of you through our CTE programs and relationships with other businesses in the community. So we're really fortunate to have such a forward-thinking superintendent, and his administrators mimic his passion, his desire, and his vision.
They're a team, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, from what I've seen. So any other, okay, so we have the State of the Schools, we have the legislative panel. Anything? The summer's coming
We
up.
do fun things. The chamber does fun things.
Yes.
June 24th.
Okay.
We do a mixer at Bordelot Winery. So,
That is that's very well attended.
and that will involve 11 different chambers of commerce from the lower shore of Virginia to all of our communities here. The chambers like the Berlin Chamber in Ocean City and the Crisfield Chamber in Chincoteague, Eastern Shore of Virginia Chamber. So it's a great party, but what's really cool about that event is it's a chance for you to meet business owners and leaders from other counties and from other states.
You never know who you're going to meet.
You don't, and you never know. All of a sudden, you make a business contact, and boom, it's good for your business.
Right.
So again, getting back to the fact that we try to do things regionally as a regional chamber.
Well, thank you for your advocacy and your support to the business community, because I know that our chamber is a strong chamber of commerce. We're not, people aren't floating around out there. Like, it's very unified, I feel.
I have a great staff. The ladies in the chamber keep me straight. They're
small
great.
staff, and
very small.
They're amazing.
They're wonderful, and we have a terrific board of directors and a terrific voting council and full council who are all engaged, and they're not afraid to take their gloves off and get their hands dirty when we need them to do that. So,
and that's what we need to do.
Yep.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Remember, your voice matters, so please, if you have a question or concern, reach out to our local officials to make your voice heard. You're watching The Local Lens. I'm Jenny Pastisak. We'll see you next time.